everybody, it's Sarah Soon, and I am here with my virtual marketing assistant, Dees. And for those of you that have been following me for a while here on the blog and on social media, you should know about Dee.
Just a little bit. So
yeah, because she's guest posted on the blog and done some social media for me. But today she is serving the role of author.
Yes.
Before I tell you the book that she read, and that's why we're going to interview her, I wanted her to tell you some of her other roles that she does outside of being a virtual marketing assistant.
Okay. Well, I'm a professional organizer. I've got a background in journalism, education, and a bunch of other things. So when my husband passed away about 5 years ago, and the job I was in, they were closing the school I was teaching at. I had to figure out what to do next with my life. And finally, somebody asked me that age-old coaching question. If you could do anything you wanted to do, if money were no object, what would you do? And my answer was, I would clean people's closets. So I decided to become a professional organizer. And under that umbrella, I also do some virtual marketing assistant like I do for Sarah, and then I also do some productivity coaching. And when COVID hit, I finished my book. So I guess now I'm an author too.
Woohoo!
So.
All right, so Dee's book is Rethinking Roles, Goals, and Obligations. And it sounds like it came out of being a professional organizer.
Somewhat, because I know people are often really attached to their stuff, and they will feel obligated to keep things because they belong to a long dead relative, or it was a gift from a relative that's still around, but it's not necessarily something they would choose for themselves. And all through life, and I've done some training, I'm a lay counselor and a life coach as well, and in all the different trainings that I've done, one of the things that always pops up is that we have a sense of obligation to be a certain way or to do certain things. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that sense of obligation is out of balance, and it gets in the way of us achieving the things that we have a passion to achieve.
Yes, I think we all, especially me, that message is hitting, especially because I have another role of being a wife. And it's been great because I realized, okay, some of my other roles were out of balance. And so I had to restructure them so I can make, being a wife and serving my husband a priority.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think you kind of follow up to the next question is, what is the core message? And I think you kind of covered it, but if you want to go even more in depth.
Okay.
To your book.
To the book. Okay. Well, I cheated and I've got a copy here. So I read in all the books that you're supposed to have a really, wow subtitle. So here's my subtitle. Explains it all. A Christian Woman's Guide to Prioritizing Relationships, Directing Energy, and Pursuing Passion. Because that the main thing is if we don't have a balance, if, whatever roles you happen to have, or if you're hanging on to a role that you've outgrown, like, you launch your children, so your role in their life changes. So sometimes we have to reprioritize that, and we have to do it at work as well, and in all types of arenas. But sometimes we have to reprioritize. We have to direct where our energy is going to go instead of just following the same patterns. And then, of course, all of us are made to pursue our passion because God gives us jobs to do, and we've got to figure out what that is before we can do it.
Absolutely. So. And what I think I love about this book is I had the privilege of being a beta reader. It's not just reading information and you're like, okay, that was a good read. It's actually very interactive. It's more of a devotional journal style. Mm-hmm. So what motivated you to structure the book in that way?
Well, like everybody else, I know I'm a busy person, and the principles behind it all are there, and the depth that you get is when you look at your own life. So you could read it and you could read deeper and deeper and deeper into the topic, but what you really need to do is go deeper and deeper into your heart, into your experience, and pull out those things that you can discover about yourself and how you view your different roles at any given point in your life. So a workbook just seemed like a quick and practical way to get the information actually in my brain, in your brain, so that we're actually processing the information and making the changes that we need so that we can do what we really were designed to do.
Yeah, and one of another things that I've really enjoyed about the book is it's scriptural based. She has a lot of scriptures, so you're fulfilling your God-given role and doing it within a scriptural context. So that way, that's what's going to actually be effective. And at the end of every chapter, you have a prayer. And what are some other things that you do to make sure that people understand the foundation of all of our roles is based on what God intended us to do?
Well, I think that we're very fortunate people in that we have scripture to fall back on, and we're all kind of sheep, as the scripture says, and that means we go astray, and it also means that we're easily led, and God is so faithful and so kind and so willing to draw pictures for us. Either in relationships at work within our families, relationships at work within our church families, and then of course scripture shows us all these different relationships, and the good the ones and the bad ones, so that we can see that these are not issues that God is not aware of. He's not looking down from heaven, wringing his hands over our situation, because we're all in the same boat, and we can see examples all around us of how our different roles play out, and how having a skewed view of them will get in the way and cause trouble for us and even other people who are within our sphere of influence.
Absolutely. And now you've had many different roles in your life.
I have.
And, for instance, like you were a wife and then your husband passed away, so there was an adjustment. So how did understanding your different roles help you to accomplish, the different goals in your life?
Of course, probably the biggest and most recent upheaval was when I became a widow. And then, when I turned 50, which has been a while back, but we won't say how long, and my children are grown now, and they don't need to be mothered constantly. So learning to transition from parent of a child, and I homeschooled forever. So I'm no longer their educator, and I'm no longer the mom in their pocket. If their own conscience is not guiding them at this point, then what I can do to impact that is become minimal, and that's a difficult role for a lot of women to grasp. And I have 2 adult children with minor disabilities who still live in my home, and one is 25 and one is 30. So I didn't want to be the sitcom stereotypical family. I mean, they're not freeloaders. So now my role with them is more, they're quick to tell me when I've got the mom hat on instead of the roommate hat or the landlord hat. So that was just one of the byproducts of, as I'm aging and my relationship to people is changing. My mother's in her 80s now, and she needs more help from me instead of the other way around. That's another relationship that's evolving, and my role in that relationship is changing. So part of it may be just, a accumulation of a lot of roles really shifting all at once. It made me so hyper aware. And then once again, my identity was so, after 30 some years of marriage, was very tied into my husband's identity. And it wasn't a bad thing, it wasn't a codependent thing, but that's just the reality that you make. I remember one of the best stories on me that tells, how this works is I had some work done on my house. And here I am, I'm, I was so proud of myself, and I hired the guy who came out and he did it, and I paid him, wrote the check, and he said, "Don't you want to look at it?" Because I was ready just to write him a check and send him on his way without scrutinizing the work, because that was not my role.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's my role. I have to look and say, "Hey, you missed a spot," or "No, I don't want it that way," or "I thought you said this and this and this." So I had to expand my role. And that was a big eye-opener for me to figure out that, oh yeah, there's a whole lot of things that changed, not just the box I check on a form. So
yeah. So it's cool because this workbook allows you to find that role. And that's probably one thing I appreciated, because you're not saying, well, as a mother, this is your role. It's more of her giving you the opportunity to think about different, aspects of your role. And so that leads me to the next part is I just want Dee to read a short excerpt about how to, go through this workbook.
All right. It's towards the end, so... And fortunately, somebody helped me find a perfect quote. So, here we go. The biblical principles of our roles, goals, and obligations apply in every relationship, and our obligation to God is always to filter every relationship through His love and principles. God's obligations for us are generally about our character and our obedience, and surprisingly not about a list of how to be the perfect performer. So I just love the idea that God gives us the freedom to flesh out our roles and the obligations that go with them based on our personal circumstances. It's not a cookie cutter thing. And this is not a cookie cutter workbook. I mean, there's two people could fill it out and come to entirely different conclusions, but if it works the way it's supposed to work, they come out at the end understanding, oh, well, I might have to do a little give and take here if I'm going to pursue this what I believe God is calling me to do at this stage in my life and in this role in my life. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think us coming out of COVID is the perfect timing to go through this book, because, a lot of parents had, they were staying at home and working, and their children were now, if they weren't homeschooling, they were homeschooling their children.
Yeah.
And so I think even coming out of COVID, their roles are going to be different. So trying to understand that, it still can be a little complex. So I recommend, if you or someone else have experience changing in roles, that this book would be a great workbook, devotional to go through to help you navigate. And sometimes we don't always know the questions to ask ourselves.
Right. So there's lots of questions in here that make us think about where we are and where we just assumed that somebody else had the answer for us, and we can't do that. We have to live deliberately, and that's been my mantra for a long time, is make decisions based on things you've really thought about, not just because somebody said, oh, you ought to do this. So, which is why I'm a late author, because I didn't think I had a book in me, but apparently I did.
And she's got more, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I've got 2 in the works, so.
Wow. Okay, well, right before we wrap up, there's a couple more questions, because, the blog is about writing and how to write a book. So if you can just give us a few tips about what helped you, this was your first book. So what helped you, as a novice writer,
what helped me
on her road to become, more of an established writer, to get this done?
Well, I was kind of lucky, actually, because I used to write for newspapers, and then I was teaching English and composition. So I kind of had to learn how to teach people to pull their thoughts together. So once I finally had the idea, oh, well, I should write a book about this, then the first thing I did was create a mind map. And from the mind map, I was able to, spread out the scope and see, okay, how big do I want this to be? I mean, this one is just about relationships in the family. If you were to take your relationships in the workplace or take your relationships where you have positions of authority, it could have been huge. So I trimmed it down to just a woman's relationship within the family. And that helped. And then I got busy. I went into it thinking, oh, well, when I'm not busy organizing people, I will work on my book. And surprise, surprise, I got busy. And the book just kind of lingered out there at, chapter 4 forever and ever. So then it kind of sat out there in no man's land for about a year. And then over the Thanksgiving holiday, by then I had met Sarah, and sometimes you have to rethink what your book's going to look like. And so I thought, this would make a great little workbook. And that was the inspiration I needed to get going again. Once again, I still had not said, okay, I'm going to write every day. I was just trying to fit it in. And then COVID hit. And it's like, all right, I'm going to finish this book. And it didn't take long. I finished the book and did the formatting and, had my beta readers test it out for me. Yes, Sarah's one of them. And then when that was all done, it was just a matter of going to Amazon and uploading it and letting it fly free from there. I'm just so thrilled that people are expressing an interest in it and what it has to offer. It's kind of humbling, actually.
Yeah, I'm excited to go through it because, like I said, I have a new role as a wife, so I need to rethink that, and I'm excited to do that. So before we wrap this up,
Yes.
Dee, please tell us where they can find the book.
The book is on Amazon.com, and if you just search under my name, Dee Selby, it'll pop up. Or you can search under the title, which is Rethinking Roles, Goals, and Obligations. It's available as a paperback. It's also available as an ebook through Kindle, and if you happen to have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. Ooh. So you can just get a copy of it and a handy-dandy journal and work through it that way. So
awesome. And go ahead.
And I have a bag full of them that I'm walking around town with, trying to entice people to buy the book directly from me. So
great. Well, I'll also put the links to Amazon for you in the bottom of the blog, and also how you can follow Dee on social and her website. And hey, if any of you guys need virtual marketing assistant work or your closet's cleaned out, contact Dee. She worked on my office, and it's amazing the work that she does.
Yeah, one of the books that's coming is about paper management at home. So if you're sitting around with piles and piles of paper, I might be your girl.
Definitely. So. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Dee, for sharing about your book and the whole journey. And remember, Amazon.com, Dee Selby, Selby.
Yes.
Definitely buy it. And also a great little gift for your family and friends.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.